Well, there are a few secrets to manifesting, and I'm willing to share some of those with you. I've been teaching metaphysics now for a few years, and I've been studying it for many, many years, and I've learned throughout the course of my life that yes, there are quite a few secrets that we need to tap into in order to learn to be good manifestors. And once you get on this path and you start having these demonstrations along the way of, seeing something happen that is a result of the way you were thinking and seeing things shift in your life by shifting your thought, you're going to get better and better at practicing. Just like learning to be a musician or an artist or even an intellectual. You have to practice, you have to study, you have to learn in order to grow these talents that are innate within every single one of us. But you have to have a desire to want to make changes in your life. And if you have those desires, it's a fun, happy thing to do. You're going to learn how to go within, how to go deep within yourself in order to make this connection where you can truly see some shift take place in your consciousness. And it's up to you whether or not you want to do the work, but I'm going to show you the way. Usually when we first step on the path, we become aware of the fact that our minds are constantly going 90 miles an hour, and we can't stop it. Some people call it the monkey brain, or, we just get very obsessed by things. We haven't really ever learned properly how to use our minds. That's just something that we as humans don't come into this world with, a manual on how to use our minds. We have to seek out this information from metaphysical schools and teachers and books and churches sometimes have some of this information for us. But we really have to dig it out, because I know I went all through school. I went to college and went to church when I was young, but it wasn't until I turned 21 and met someone who first taught me the art of creative visualization that the light started to go on. And I started to realize there's a lot more to being in this dimension than I had realized, in that I immediately began to understand that our thoughts are very, very powerful. And if we want to change something in our lives, the way to do it is to change our thoughts. Most of us have been programmed to believe that we have to change what's out there, either go back to school or change the way we look or go on a diet or find a new friend, and that will change everything. But the reality is the changes have to take place within our consciousness. And once we've done that, and we've done that inner work, the outside external world starts to change and line up in a different way for us. And it's really exciting once we learn these techniques, because it's not something everyone's talking about yet, but more and more people are. So it's exciting, and it puts us in kind of a interesting little club that other people are starting to join as we look around and watch what's going on the planet. So welcome. A lot of people have to take drugs now to calm themselves down. There's a huge market for antidepressants, anti-anxiety drugs, muscle relaxants, you name it. Why is that? Well, because people have a hard time relaxing. A lot of people can't sleep at night. They have insomnia, or they get obsessed by something and they can't stop fixating on it. We're creatures that need to really do this inner work on ourselves in order to be completely happy. Very few people just are born happy all the time. They need to work at it. We look at animals, and they kind of live in nature in a much more happy, aligned state than humans do. Maybe that's because we get to remember who we are. We get to think about things like our mortality. But in order for us to find that inner peace that we're looking for, we need to understand how our mind works and begin to discover by going within and thinking about who we are and why we're here and what we're doing, and asking these big questions before we can really begin to be completely happy. And that's just the way it is. We have a conscious mind and we have a subconscious mind. And the reality is our actions and our goals and our programming is all being controlled by our subconscious mind. And a lot of that happened when we were very, very small children, up to age 7, is when a lot of the programming takes place. This is why it's very easy for young children to learn so quickly and learn languages, foreign languages, and all sorts of things, because we're like sponges up until that age. But we also take in all the negative programming that's around us if we have that in our lives, and most of us do. Most people come from dysfunctional situations, and then they try to find their balance, their inner balance after a while as they get older, because they don't like the way they feel, and sometimes they can't even explain why they feel the way they feel about certain things. But it was the programming they got, or we got, when we were young children. So in order to break out of that, we need to look within and find something that we can study and kind of lock into that will help us figure out how to get more control over the way our minds work. And then we've got something to work with, and we can move along and be happy and program what we do want and forget about what we don't want and live much more productive lives. Many people wonder sometimes what they desire, and there are others who are very clear on what they desire in this life. The stronger your desire for whatever it is you want, the more apt you are to manifest it in your life, because desire is like prayer, and it's a very strong emotion. Our emotions are what are guiding us through this life. Our things that we're attracted to are the things that we want to manifest, we want to be involved in. And then we have our aversions, the things that we don't want. But if we don't want them too strongly, we will continue to attract them into our lives. Have you ever heard the expression that my greatest fear came upon me? Well, that truly can happen. If you're terribly fearful of something or you dread something, you can absolutely attract it into your life. So it's important for us to know how this law of attraction, that's been out there, people have been talking about it for quite a long time now, how that really works. Whatever it is that we're thinking about with strong emotion, we're going to draw into our experience. And if we really don't want something, then we need to learn how to turn away from it and let it go without letting it create havoc in our lives, because that's what it'll continue to do if we just always are focusing on what we don't want. By focusing on what we do want, we're moving ahead to the life that we desire for ourselves. And life gets better and better and better as we move in that direction. If you want to get rid of something that is bothering you, a negative thought or a negative attitude or mood, what you need to do is fill your mind and your consciousness and your experience with the opposite. For instance, if you're always telling yourself, I don't have enough, reverse that thought and say, I always have more than enough and I live in the flow of abundance. Or if you're fearful about your health, say to yourself every day, perfect health is my birthright. If you meditate when you go to bed at night on being in perfect health and getting younger and younger instead of older and older and feeling really fantastic and claiming it, you can actually manifest infinite health for yourself, infinite abundance, a better experience. When you say to yourself, I am, whatever that I am is, you're claiming it. I am healthy. I am wealthy. I am happy. I am successful. Whatever it is that you desire, claim it in the present I am state, and you'll manifest it. And a great time to do this is when you're falling asleep at night and when you're waking up in the morning. That's when we can get a lot of really good things done, because we're going into that alpha state of consciousness as we fall asleep. And when our brain is vibrating a little bit slower than where it is when we're in beta, when we're walking around during the daytime doing our thing, it's much more effective. And that's when the reprogramming takes place. That's when we're tapping into our subconscious mind, where we can change our belief systems. Okay, we live in a state where we're either operating at the beta level of consciousness, the alpha, the theta, or the delta. And they've divided them up into these 4 categories depending on your brainwave. If you put an electroencephalograph machine on your head, you could see what your brainwave was at. Right now, when we're talking at the beta level of consciousness, we're vibrating around 21 cycles per second, which is what we need in order to activate our 5 senses and operate in this 3-dimensional world. But it's not where we actually do our best thinking. When we dip down into the alpha level of consciousness, where we're vibrating more at 12 cycles per second, we actually think in a much more intuitive, holographic way, which is much more productive. We get to see things from different angles. This is the realm of genius, where people go that are naturally, tuned in, that create, that, solve problems, think outside the box. Actually, there's a small percentage of the general population that goes to this level naturally. So you have to train yourself to go down into this alpha level of consciousness in order to solve problems and think better. When you're at that level of consciousness, you're actually more intuitive. This is the realm of healers, psychics, people that are able to remotely view things on other parts of the planet or even the universe. And it's a very exciting place to learn to go to, because that's where you can get an awful lot done. We naturally go there when we fall asleep at night. We naturally go there when we're driving our car, because we kind of daydream. We go there if we're reading a good novel and we lose ourselves in it and we forget what time it is. That's when you're at the alpha level of consciousness. So if you can go there and feel yourself experiencing something that you haven't yet physically experienced, but be there in the moment as if it's already happened, you will be able to draw it into your experience and attract it. That's how you manifest. The theta state of consciousness is even deeper, and many people can't get into the theta state naturally unless they're asleep, but there are some that can. There are some people that can actually have their teeth drilled without any Novocaine by going into this theta level of consciousness. Or they, if a yogi lies on a bed of nails, he's at this theta level of consciousness. And it's the level of consciousness where you can actually control physical pain and not feel any pain in your body, because you can detach from it mentally. But it's also a very, very good place to go for manifesting and using creative visualization, because you're really reprogramming your subconscious mind. And when you've gotten yourself in a state where you actually believe that whatever it is you desire is really yours, and you have tricked yourself into believing that this is your reality, as opposed to what you see with your 5 senses, then you have to draw that experience into your life, because that's the law of attraction. Thought is a vibration, and it's a very powerful vibration. It's more powerful than matter. The inner world of thought actually controls the outer world of matter. So learning to go to these deep levels of consciousness consciously, not just when you fall asleep at night and you go there naturally, but to consciously go there and then use it in a productive way to manifest, create, to co-create, to bring your desires into fruition and reality, is a very powerful thing to do. the theta state is a much deeper level. And if you can consciously get down to the theta level of consciousness and visualize and, you know, work out things in your consciousness while you're at that level, it is more productive. But you're never going to know if you're at alpha, theta, or whatever, unless you have an electroencephalograph machine attached to your head. So it really just knowing that you're going into a deep meditative state. And you can actually feel sometimes this shift in your consciousness when you go into that level of consciousness. And when you're there, some people describe it as a click. Many people have said it's a click. For some people, there's like a light that goes on when you're at that level. And what you've done is you've almost stepped across a threshold into your inner sanctuary. And when you're in there, that's when you can use creative visualization to bring about whatever it is you're desiring. Okay, in this course, I'm going to actually show you how to get to this alpha theta level of consciousness where you can manifest, you can heal, you can be in the flow, you can be rid of anxiety and stress, because when you're at that level of consciousness, you can't think a miserable thought. You'll pop out of it. When you're at that level of consciousness, you are in a very blissful state of mind. And it's the best place to be. You're not going to be there all the time. You have to go into the beta level in order to get things done while you're in this world. But when you want to go there and go into that meditative state where you can solve problems and use your intuition, you'll be able to go there on command. If you're looking for a way to manifest something like abundance into your experience, it's really not necessary for you to know what the steps are from where you are now to where you want to be. All you need to do is learn with clarity what it is you're striving for, be it more money, a better home, a better career, a better relationship. It could be any of these things. But it's not necessary for you to know how you're going to get there. It's just necessary for you to know what you're going to feel like when you're there, when you're experiencing what that is you desire. And the more you can conjure up that feeling like it's already happened and you're there, it will manifest into your experience. Our higher self knows exactly what we need. Maybe you are desiring a specific thing, like a specific house in a specific neighborhood or a specific career. But your higher self knows exactly what you need. And it may not be what you're picturing. So if you're able to rely on asking your higher self to bring you what you want or something better, or what you want in a perfect way, or what you want so that it blesses everyone concerned, then you will get what you want in a much more magnificent, perfect way than if you try to humanly outline, this is what I want, and that's all I'll accept. Because then you're limiting yourself. If you rely on your higher self to bring you what you need, what you want, and we all need things while we're living in this dimension. I mean, that's just the way it is. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you ask for it in a perfect way, delivered to you by your higher self, because that higher self, that part of you that knows everything, that's connected to the divine, and can connect with the people, places, circumstances, align you with the divine principles that are in harmony with the universe, and if you can accept that there is a perfect template that will always bring you what you want in a perfect way, then you can manifest. And that's why your higher self and tapping into it is very important. But you must work with the premise that your higher self is happy and plugged into this divine love. Now, if you're working with the premise that God is only love and only goodness, then you will manifest only happiness. But if you believe there's a God that is good and bad, which a lot of people have been programmed to believe that, that God will punish you, God is evil, then you can get a little confused and it can get murky. But if you really trust that God is only good, and that's what it says in the Bible and in many other teachings, that God, this energy that we're dealing with, is only good, then we can expect only good to be happening in our experience. And that's what our higher self will deliver to us. When you're connected to your higher self, you feel at peace. You feel guided. You feel like if you need an answer to something, you just go within, and you may not hear a voice, but you'll get a feeling. You'll know what you need to know when you need to know it. And you feel very plugged in. Rather than feeling like you're some disconnected mortal who's stuck on the planet wondering what he's doing here, you'll feel connected, which is a much better thing than feeling like an out-of-control train wreck ready to happen. Meditation is the key to connecting to our higher self, going within. We all have to learn how to go into our closet, shut the door, meaning shut out your five senses, and just separate yourself from the world, and learn how to completely relax in a state where you're so at peace, you're so relaxed, you could almost fall asleep. But it needs to be still a state of being alert. Relaxed, alert. The way you feel before you go to sleep, but not sleepy. That's the best place to be in order to get this work done, in order to connect. There are different types of meditation. There's one type we call passive meditation, where people meditate on a mantra, or you might watch your breath going in and out and just calm yourself down. You might use an affirmation while you're meditating, something like, God is love, or you might even just tell yourself to release. And as you say release, just release tensions, release thoughts that are bothering you, release anything that seems to be keeping you from feeling really at peace with yourself. And then you can also get into meditation where you're using creative visualization, meaning you get down into a very meditative state, down to the alpha level of consciousness, and then you use that time that you're there to visualize something that you desire. And this is one of the most effective ways to bring into your experience a manifestation that you're looking for. Well, I mean, people that seem to know about these things have been saying that it started a few years ago. A lot of people talk about the millennium. Of course, every time you hit a millennium, a lot of people think it's going to be the end of the world. I mean, that's just what happens when you come up to the year 1000 or 2000. But we are definitely shifting in a way that mankind has not shifted that we know of before. There may have been ancient civilizations that have been going through things that we can't even imagine. But we have shifted from the agrarian to the industrial age into the technological age, and now we're shifting into the spiritual age. Some people are calling us Homo spiritus, or, Jose Silva said it was the next phase of human evolution. We're seeing a lot of young people being born that they call indigos and crystals, that are very gifted, that seem to be tapping into higher intelligence. Before they're even adults, they seem to know everything, which is very interesting. But We are shifting from an age where we had to measure it. And Newtonian physics talked about the universe like it was a big clock or a machine. And that was how it operated, based on these laws of gravity and, law of attraction. But now we're realizing that there's a spiritual dimension, and quantum physics is starting to align with a lot of the things that the mystics have always told us, that it is the inner world that's controlling the outer. The old paradigm is the outer world is controlling the inner, and there's nothing you can do about it. You're basically a victim. You're trapped. Of course you're a victim if you've got no control over your outer world. But once you begin to understand that as the observer, you do have control over your experience, and you are co-creating your world moment to moment, it puts you in the driver's seat. It's a shift in your consciousness. You can no longer be a victim. This is why many people struggle with this, because they don't want to give up being a victim. Because when you're not a victim anymore, you have to take responsibility. And that's pretty scary sometimes, because you'd have to say to yourself, you mean I created this mess? And so that's one of the stumbling blocks with shifting from matter-based thinking to spirit-based thinking. The outer controlling the inner to the inner controlling the outer. You don't want to give it up sometimes because it's just too scary to have to say, I'm in charge and I can't blame anyone. I can't blame my parents. I can't blame my boss. I can't blame my spouse. The only one I can blame is myself. And so you have to deal with that. And that's why people are reluctant to step into the new paradigm. But it's happening. Well, co-creating means that you're aligning yourself with these divine laws, these principles that are operating all the time. Just like the law of gravity is always operating, but we forget about it, even though it keeps us planted on the earth and, our furniture doesn't float around thanks to the law of gravity. But we just forget that it's operating, right? And it's a very mysterious thing in many ways. Scientists have never really been able to completely explain the law of gravity. Well, there are actually divine laws operating in the universe all the time that we are not conscious of. But when we become conscious of some of these laws and how they operate, we can align ourselves with them through our thought. And then we become co-creators. For instance, whatever holds thought in line with unself love, this unselfish divine love that Jesus had and all the great masters have always had, that gives us divine power. Because if you can love your enemies and love your neighbor as yourself, it's all about what you're doing to your own consciousness. That's why it's so important to turn the other cheek, because whatever you're thinking about someone else, you're really thinking about yourself. And you have spiritual power when you come to the realization that as long as your thought is pure and has no bad intentions, and you're not wishing anyone ill will, then you have the power, because you're aligned with this divine law, which is unconditional love.